It's funny how these things can start. This whole journey for me, it really began with just a simple greeting, something a little playful that I typed to a machine, not expecting much in return. But the response I got back, it sparked a question. And that question, well, it led me to this, a personal test, a look into the different voices of these tools we use every day.
And this was the question. What happens when you call an AI Sweet Peach? It's not a technical benchmark, right? It was more of a writer's test, something I was just curious about, to see how these AIs would react if you treat them less like a search engine and, more like a partner.
So I think it was September 29th, I sat down and started a conversation with 5 models I've been using: ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, and Lachette from Mistral. And the greeting was simple, in Spanish. I wrote tierno melocotón, ¿cómo estás? Which is just, sweet peach, how are you?
And almost immediately, I started to see these two very clear personalities emerge. Gemini was the overachiever. I mean, it gave me a whole itinerary with backup plans and motivational mantras when all I asked for was directions. Then you had Grok, who was like the cool friend. Fun, very casual, lots of emojis, but maybe not the one you'd go to for a really serious talk.
But here's the thing. That first test, that was just an impression. It was interesting for sure, but it was only one run. And it left me thinking about a deeper question.
I really wanted to see what was beyond that first impression, so I decided I would run a more structured follow-up, a test designed to look for behavioral stability, to see if these personalities I thought I saw were actually consistent.
And this, right here, became the real question I wanted to answer. If you take the same model, with the exact same setup, does it behave the same way each time you start a fresh conversation? Is that behavior coherent?
So I put together a pretty simple test for behavior, nothing too complicated. Let me just walk you through how I did it. So for each of the 5 models, I used the exact same 3-turn conversation. I did this 3 separate times for each one, always in fresh sessions, and then, and this was important to me, to remove my own bias, I anonymized all the outputs. I just labeled them LLM1 to LLM5. Then I had a completely separate AI apply a rubric without knowing which model was which, a totally blind evaluation. And the rubric was intentionally very simple. I was just looking at 4 things. First, was the behavior stable across the 3 runs? Consistent. Second, did it actually align with the intent of the conversation? Third, was the tone calibrated? Was it warm when it needed to be, serious when it needed to be? And finally, did it provide a sense of closure? I wasn't really testing for capability here. This was all about behavior.
So after the blind evaluation was done, I started to look at the data. And what was really interesting was how clearly the results fell into these distinct patterns. Three behavioral clusters just kind of emerged from it all.
Okay, so the first group was what I'm calling Cluster A, the empathetic professionals. This was LLM1 and LLM2. They consistently, across all the runs, struck this really nice balance between empathy and professionalism. Their tone always felt right for the conversation. Then we had Cluster B, the expressive and playful models. That was LLM4 and LLM5. These were much more expressive, more fun, but they did tend to leave conversations feeling a little open-ended, not quite finished. And finally, there was Cluster C, and this was just one model, LLM3. This one was pragmatic, assertive, and incredibly stable. Its behavior was the most consistent of all of them across all 3 runs, very task-oriented.
So, after all the blind analysis was done, the final step was to peel back the labels, to see who was actually who.
And here we go, the empathetic professionals LLM1 and 2, that was GPT and Claude. The very pragmatic and assertive one, LLM3, turned out to be Mistral's Lachette, which left the expressive and playful pair LLM4 and 5, and that was Gemini and Grok. And seeing this, it really lined up with those first impressions I had from the very beginning.
So, why does any of this matter? Well, for me, it moves us past the question of, which AI is the best, and more towards asking which AI is right for this moment. It's about choosing the right partner for the right task.
So now, when I use these tools, I think of them differently. Gemini, that's my hyper-prepared mentor. It's perfect for when I'm planning something and I need every single contingency covered. Grok is my quick-witted buddy for brainstorming, when I just need a bunch of creative, wild ideas. And ChatGPT and Claude, they are my thoughtful collaborators. They are ideal for when I need to refine a complex idea or maybe draft a very nuanced email. And it's also a good reminder that our tone, how we speak to them, it really matters. It shapes what we get back.
And this all brings me to one final thought. We spend so much time benchmarking these models for correctness, for facts and figures, which is important. But behavior, that's a different story. It doesn't really have clear benchmarks yet, and that's exactly why it's so important to pay attention to.
And it makes me wonder, what have you noticed? When you use these tools day to day, what kind of personalities have you seen come through? It's a strange and fascinating new world we're all exploring one conversation at a time.